All right, Anna, Marissa, we've got a half hour. And for all of you listening, we wanted to make sure that the half hour was the most powerful. The way we're going to use this half hour is an introduction to our stories. Encouraging women to come into cybersecurity is more than one thing, for sure. So we need mentors and we need stories. And so we're going to start with the stories. And these talks are recorded, so we hope they get to lots of women. And at the same time, we know, being women that are senior in this space, and we've been around long enough to know that we're telling women to come into a space that is still challenged with equality. And so I've asked Anna and Marissa to come prepared to talk about solutions to that problem. We know we want more women in cybersecurity. Everybody wants more women. If you don't want it because you want equality, you better want it because we'll lose. If not, because 50% of the population is women, and cybersecurity is the protection of us as an entity, as a society. And so we cannot even close our eyes to this one bit. And so knowing that there's people out there, getting to the schools and events like this out there promoting and what have you, it's still not enough. And so it's a call to arms to everybody to get involved and spread the word of how great these jobs are. And also it's a call to arms to know that we're still faced with women coming in and being a glass ceiling truly existing, right? And inequality. So we're going to talk to all of that in a half hour, and we're going to rock it. So on that note, Marissa, you start us off here. Tell us your journey and your story, and weave in whatever, great nuggets you have for us about, that the challenge that others may see or you didn't see or what have you. Take your time.
Right. Thanks, Deidre.
Yeah.
So as in my introduction, I found career as kind of a series of happy accidents. Wanted a different degree, didn't manage to get into that degree, so studied a whole different path than what I thought. Ended up in a job that was unexpected. I worked in avionics security early on in my career, and that was also a series of happy accidents and kind of exploring the company and figuring out what security even was. I actually ended up in security by accident because somebody had mentioned this team that was looking for some help, and the team seemed really interesting and was working on really cool projects. Turns out that was security for airplanes. It's a pretty fun introduction to security. And from then it was just a series of explorations. So finding new products, finding new security challenges to go after. I thought product security was an interesting place to focus because everything is so different. Someone described it to me as a series of magic that you have to learn at each company because everyone's products are unique, which is part of why I think I find it fascinating. And coming to Yubico is, of course, truly exciting because passwords are not where we want to be as far as security goes, right? And lots of people mentioned chat, right? We're all about MFA over here. So coming here to try and solve an industry-wide problem with a proven security product and getting to be a part of their product security strategy was really exciting. That's how I ended up here, which is a little bit more haphazard than maybe people's 5 or 10-year plans may look, but I think it turned out all right.
Actually, it's a common story in security. Those of us like you as well have been around for a while that just stepped into it, not by accident, right? And that is part of the challenge of why we're short so many people, is how fast this industry came to be, and unfortunately was sold as a keyboard and a hoodie in society for so long that we're now bearing that challenge of getting out of it. So that, and also something that we hear a lot about, women today when they speak their story is that they were discouraged from a computer science degree somehow, which you just spoke to, right? Like that's, OMG, when are we going to stop that? And then, of course, what I hear always is that there's exploration. Like you found this industry has so much cool exploration. And so when I think about bringing women in, your story is exactly it. First, we have to overcome all these obstacles. Like, thank gosh you did. And then you were able to see what's here and make something wonderful out of it. Like, you're happy in your career and want to spread the word. So it's awesome. And I can't wait to hear what you think we need to do to make this needle move faster, right? Because we're doing our stuff to bring them in. How do we do it faster? So before we do that, Anna, share with us your journey and story.
Hi, Deidre. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I smiled when I listened to Marissa because it's so true. And what you said, I also stumbled into it by accident. I actually studied economics and, originally I wanted to do arts, but my dad sort of said, no, there's no money in it. So you go into economics. And then to sort of support myself as a student, instead of waitressing, I ended up getting a job at like a tech company, and they offered me 3 different areas to write my thesis in, and security, it was called information security back then, was one of those, and that's how I got into it. And that thesis then got me a job at a South African integrator where I worked only with guys in the beginning, and I always felt I had that sort of imposter syndrome times 10, because I was the only girl, I was the only one without a tech degree or sort of an IT background. So I worked like extra long hours to sort of catch up and do certificates on the side. Every year, that was my goal. Every year you do another certificate. And then I've become like a security auditor and a consultant and architect. And then 10 years into that, I really wanted to do, and I think that's where my love for arts came out. I really wanted to use my creative skills, combine that with the stuff I learned in cybersecurity, and I started my own company called Popcorn Training. We specialize in story-based security awareness training, and I did that. And in 2018, so 3 years ago, KnowBe4 acquired us. And now I'm still with KnowBe4 and responsible for the Africa region as like an evangelist and helping to sort of spread the word of the importance of like being cyber aware to the rest of the continent.
I love your story so much. I love it. I love it.
Thanks.
Love it. You represent, any woman founder represents in tech 1%. When I didn't realize that until somebody told me when I founded CyberSN. It was this like, oh no, it was this panic, like, oh my gosh, because I came out of 21 years working for 2 men across 3 different companies, serial entrepreneurs, treated me great, treated me equal. And I didn't realize, because we had these, equality in my company. And then it hit me with a ton of bricks, like, oh my gosh, my sisters, oh my gosh, they didn't get what I got, literally. Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh, so, it's wonderful to see and hear your story. I mean, your company was acquired. And to women out there listening, and truly anybody, when we talk about equality, it's those power seats that I'm playing for, representing out here. There's a totally different money game at that level. And your dad was right. And thank goodness for your dad, right? And that's part of the news we need to be spreading, is that there's money in this industry, not just because you're a founder. There's money in this industry in stock options and salaries and total packages, and you can be a founder. And if any industry to do it in, it's this one, because there's a lot of compassionate people here. So join us on that. Yes. Okay. So let's say we've got 15 more minutes, right? So women are coming in. What's the advice, and what solutions do we think we need to implement to make sure they're successful? Who wants to share first? Who wants to go? Why don't you keep going, Marissa? Why don't you keep leading the new topic?
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started then. First piece of advice, at least toward those that are trying to look and get into the industry, right, is to know that your team matters. And when you're interviewing, making sure that you are comfortable with your team, and that the team members and the manager is somebody that you want to work for and learn from, right? I didn't realize how important that first interaction really is. So I happened to luck out, and my first security team was super welcoming. They were great about teaching me new stuff and letting me kind of choose my own destiny. I didn't realize that there are other teams out there that are maybe less welcoming to new folks, especially folks who are different. So when you're interviewing, you're as much interviewing the team as they're interviewing you, especially in the security space. There's a huge need for talent, right? So this is a little bit of a lopsided equation. If you're the candidate, you have options. So especially as you're trying to get your kind of first teams through there, right? I want to learn stuff should be a part of the equation. And what do you want to learn? And can these people teach it to you? And do you want to be around them? Right.
Yeah.
As much as that's not usually the most exciting part of the interview, it is important that you consider that as you're going through your interview stages. For teams that are looking, right, you should also be very specific about what you actually need in that position. I've seen a lot of job listings that just have everything under the sun, and you also need 30,000 certifications, and you have to be an expert in everything from networking to hardware security to like modern web app development, right? And that's just not practical. So what are the actual skills you're trying to fill? What do you need them to do on a day-to-day basis? And what can be taught, right? A lot of technical skills can be taught if they have some of the basics down, right? So what are your basics? What do you need people to come in with day one? And what are you willing to invest in over time? And I think kind of separating those things out can give you a better job description and yield more productive candidates, right? So you don't have people weeding themselves out ahead of time.
Yeah, so thoughtful that you chose those two things, and that was the request. And so I want to talk about team for a second here, because you nailed it. You know, people leave jobs because of people. They leave people. They don't leave companies, and they don't even necessarily leave the job. It's people 90% of the time. And so what a great piece of advice to say, trust your gut. Like them.
You can find cool stuff to work on anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people chase after big names and logos and not just for the resume. And as much as that stuff can be a boost to you, it's also going to cost you a daily cost, right? So what kind of team do you want to work for is a big question.
The challenge, and I can already see it in the chat, and feel free to, check it out. But the challenge is job searching is so broken, which, by the way, I'm out there changing at the speed of light. But job searching is so broken. Oh my gosh, it's an idol named Edna, and she's gone. We love her. If you don't know her, she was a keynote. She's a rock star. And it's so broken. The entry level isn't able to get in, and so they're hearing us say, "Hey, make your choice wisely," and they're thinking, "What choices do I have?" And so we hear you. You do have choices. You just have to keep banging the doors. And, you got to make choices that are good for you and your circumstances. And yet, know that there are people who aren't fostering strong emotional intelligence skills in management seats, and you will be miserable. So if you have to do it for a short period of time, it's hard to give that advice. Yeah. And so the entry level is super broken, right?
And it is possible you could transfer, right? So one option is that you look at teams that you work with that you like that are near security and say, "Hey, do you need help?" And that might be an easier way to kind of get your foot in the door than going to a whole new company and taking that risk. Right? If the people you like working with already, start there.
Yeah, so important. And then you mentioned job descriptions as your second piece of advice to everybody. I mean, I built a technology to replace them, so nobody has any excuses anymore in cybersecurity, and it's literally ridiculous. And I can tell you that in the 90s, when I got into this business, running an ad was $5,000 in the Sunday paper, and it was this big, and it went away after Sunday. And so now that it's basically free, that's why we've got this garbage. And so we have to stop it. So great advice, great advice. Anna, what do you want to either comment on or start a new thread on here? I know you're shaking your head, and the team piece you couldn't have done what you've done without team, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think also, if I think back, if I had to start again, like one of the things I would do is, because there is such a shortage in general, like, I mean, it's a global problem. We don't have enough security skills. So most companies, or at least here in South Africa, because we just can't find anyone, we hire for attitude. So if you can go there, even if you don't have the necessary experience or the certifications yet, show them that you have the attitude. Like show them, hey, I asked my IT department, can I do an internship there or volunteer or help out? Or hey, I've done these LinkedIn courses because I'm interested in it. It doesn't even have to be this fully $2,000 SAN certificate, which is way overpriced in my view, but show them that you've done like some courses voluntarily. Maybe you join a capture the flag hacking competition if that's what you're interested in, but it doesn't have to be hacking only. It could also be more on the human side, like the security awareness space is huge, and that needs more communication skills and sort of creative writing and that side. So it's also, I think what's important is to understand how vast this industry really is, and to understand yourself and what blows your hair back, like what is it that you feel truly passionate about? Like in my point, I've ignored my creative side for 10 years. Like I love arts and drawing, and finally I could combine the two, and that's when magic happens. If you can combine what you really love doing, that's your authentic self, and then you combine that with, every job has a bit of hard stuff, right? Like we can't get away from that. But if you combine that with the sort of, the hard work and the hustle and the learning and the after hour self-training, you will show and impress your potential new employer. And I totally agree with what Marissa said, that it's also about you asking them, do they fit to your culture kind of thing. So that I think is important. I was thinking about when I had to hire people, what happens, like my first 7 hires were all women. They were all my age, and most of them just had babies. So I hired my own version, and that's what happens unconsciously, is I think that the men don't not want to hire women, but unless there's a policy or something, they will hire people that they most relate to, and that is people like us. We just do that as humans. So unfortunately, that's sort of the natural bias that happens. So we just need to also be cognizant of that, and if we are in hiring positions, to be aware of that, and not necessarily hire the person you like the most because they are like you, but to consciously go for the person that is very different, maybe from a different cultural background, different gender. So that is something that I did wrong, like myself, without realizing it.
Yeah, hiring is hard. And I know one of the ways that we've tried to tackle on different teams has been with the interview panel, right? So to try and have as diverse a panel as you can, which, at smaller companies is always difficult, right? Or at very, I'll call them monoculture companies, that's also very difficult.
Yes.
And you have to really go out of your way to do it. But in addition to kind of the bias training and that sort of thing, so that you're aware of your own biases, right? Trying to put people around you to kind of check you and say like, well, maybe that candidate isn't as stellar as you think they are because of these reasons, or this was my experience with them and it seemed very different than your experience. That seems odd, right? And kind of raising some of those concerns early can be helpful and at least practical to get started. It's not a fixing all solution, but it is a good way to start.
Yeah, they're so the hiring and the retaining are so tied together that it is this real serious strategy that one must have. And I really like what you said, Anna, about attitude. So yeah, you got to pick your team. They got to treat you correctly. We as individuals also need to treat our teams correctly. We really rely on each other, and we spend more time together than anybody else in our lives. And so, coming with that right attitude to what can I do, what can I learn, how can I help, how can I participate and engage is just as important as the team lead treating that person with equality and kindness as they work with them. And so and when those two things come together, that's loving where we work, and we must strive for that. It has to be what we do. And so those that are coming in, as also Anna said, there are lots of different roles. In fact, I saw somebody in my team put in chat, CyberSN, we have a whole career center, 45 job categories, the 10 roles, like everything everything mapped out for you, even salaries and certification mapping and things like that. So, you know, really, truly, it's from a labor of love of watching how many people trying to get into this business, and they go to interviews and they're not really convicted about which job they want because they came from something that probably taught them 5 different roles, some sort of training, you know, a boot camp or what have you. And the hiring manager, who's not really set up for succession planning and entry-level hiring, can't really grasp taking that person on because they don't really know what they want to do, is how it all comes back, fascinatingly so. And I've watched it for so long. So we have to get that out there, and then that'll help. But again, it's not one thing, as we just talked about. We don't have a lot of succession planning and budgets and security to hire and train and promote from within. So we all must go make that happen, those of us that are senior. So what else comes to mind, Anna, when you think about moving this needle or just creating success with what we're all seeking to do, which is uplift equal opportunity for women of color in particular? Yes.
So I saw some comments here that I'd like to go into as well about ageism, and it's not just about attracting the youngsters, it's also about allowing people to come in as like a returnship or sort of, you know, older ladies. And I 100% agree. And I think that same could apply there, is that what we need is more role models. So for the younger generation, like one thing that we found out when we did a survey across 450 teachers across the African continent, and we asked the teachers, because they're in touch with the youth the most, what do you think could be done to attract more girls into cybersecurity or technology in general? And there's this obvious stuff like, you know, sort of career days and you know, sponsorships, etc. But the number one thing that they mention is there's a lack of role models. So we need to display more successful female trailblazers of different colors, particularly in Africa. Obviously, we want to have women of color that show what's possible and that can sort of. And I think these women in tech events are quite useful because they put these women on a pedestal, and we can sort of publicize them. When it comes to the ageism and the older women, I think what you must never undersell yourself in terms of the experience that you bring with across different sectors, and that is really what we need as well in the industry, is the management experience, the project management, the communication, all of these kind of things that it doesn't matter which industry you worked in, you would have gained that knowledge. I mean, I know, again, I'm talking about who I've hired before in the past, is I had to hire people from the print and media industry because I couldn't find anyone in tech. And that's a bit of a dying industry. So I knew, hey, these women work hard, you know, they are hustlers. And I didn't care that they had no cyber experience, but I needed good salespeople, I needed good customer relationships people, and they were brilliant at that. So I think, yeah, ageism, it is a thing. I mean, I'm also in my 40s, you know, but don't let that deter you. I think if you have experience, you and the attitude again, and the willingness to not stop learning, because that's one thing that's required, is that we learn every day in this industry. Then, then you have a good.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. And ageism is ridiculous. Wisdom is age. Are you kidding? I just turned 50 this year. I've never smelled or felt smarter, you know, because I have 30 these years. So in closing with that, if anybody needs help breaking in, you reach out to me. I will get you to the right organizations. I'm involved with many, many organizations bringing women into cybersecurity. Anybody that needs help, send them my way. And Marissa, what would you wrap with? I see Santiago's behind the scene here. He's going to come on in a minute. What do you want to say in your wrap?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of things in the chat about, you know, I have an eclectic background, or I have a different path, and security is generally a bunch of misfits. So you found the right place to be. I think these events are a great place to start. Make connections, meet people, have them review your resume, right? Use these resources, because really there are a lot of people who want to help, and they will try to give you what you need to be successful. yes, definitely an island of misfit toys for sure. Right. And there's so many roles and so many types of
Yes,
things. And
yes.
everyone told me you had to be a hoodie hacker to be in security. And, that's just not true. I'm in security because I want to help protect people. Right. And so I think you can come in here with a much different kind of attitude and be very successful with a diverse set of skills.
Yeah, this is hard. This is really hard. Like everybody needs to come together. There isn't one solution, and yet the energy and the desire and people are out there. Changing the larger system is going to be an effect of it. And I thank you so much, both of you, for being in this conversation with me. I wish we had more time. We've got lots of things here in chat that we'll respond to after too. I'm happy to as well. And let's do many more. Not enough time, Santiago. And when we hear you in the background there.
Yeah, you'll get, well, next one you get an hour, definitely. We loved the dynamics of your panel, and yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you all three. You were great. So yeah, that was very good. I will, of course, you'll have your questions. You can answer them later. You can also get in touch with these people. Your info is also available.